about that back when we did the original contract about using the Kiva for a station, but the school could not guarantee us access. So we need 24/7 access. And we couldn't access it during the day with classrooms in there. And they didn't want us to access the technology room in the library either, so it was kind of a non-starter.
I know in Ashburnham, Ashburnham, Westminster, their local access is at the high school. It's located at the high school. It's like on a separate wing. It's built in. They have their own studio. I know Athol Orange, AOTV, has their own building, but it's a much bigger building. So there are different options. I don't think we should take anything off the board at this point in time.
No, and you know, certainly you've got a new superintendent coming in the school, and I think a new person in the video production. I don't know if they're going to hire somebody else. I understand that the gentleman doing that is retiring, and that's one of the reasons why we didn't want to go overboard with robotic cameras in the Kiva right away. But yeah, that's an option. And I just wonder if we should explore the light department building as an option as well.
Because later this year, we should be able to finish the food pantry at the new senior center, so the food pantry will be moving out of that building later this year.
And space-wise, I mean, that's why we originally went in there, because we said, okay, we can have an equipment closet, and then, not to rush up the food pantry, but, you know, there were plans, I think, 8 or 10 years ago for it. You know, it would only be here a year, don't worry about it. And, I mean, that's okay, but you can put down a carpet, as long as that building is sound, put down a carpet and a backdrop, and you have a studio that can be very flexible and space. So I think we should look at several different options, but I think that building could be one of them. And I'd like to get the building inspector there and then maybe get some quotes if he feels it's worth pursuing.
Mr. Sprint?
I was going to suggest that building as well as you have Scout Hall, which eventually is in Council of Aging. I wouldn't take anything off the table because that would be a large size for you to use also over there.
That building needs to go.
Just to get 700 square feet. I mean, there is buildings that we have that we will probably no longer use in the future, which we should end up seeing what we can end up reusing before we end up putting them as excess. And I mean, I see those as two options right now, in addition to some, like you said, is the food pantry, and also using 2 School Street possibly, some of that area. But you are right, 2 School Street, for what you need, is very small. That's why the food pantry and COA are much larger.
Yeah,
so you end up using square footage-wise.
And I think people should know too, I visited AOTV and they have a beautiful studio, but the manager had told me too, she said the biggest mistake we made was building it because not a lot of people use the studio. But I think, you know, if you want to expand it, if somebody wants to come in and say, hey, I want to do this show, you should have that space available, so.
Yes.
Could we utilize the basement area here? You know, since we do have that outside access door that comes in. I mean, I just thought that, you know, that back area, you know, might be, since it's a large area, that maybe that might be an option.
I'm not going to turn anything down. I would prefer not to be in the basement, especially with equipment.
Okay.
But, you know, if we need to be, that may be the best option.
That needs to be just storage down
Okay.
So I'll get in touch with the building inspector and start that process as well. And I'll be talking with the school too, and I'll see if there's any chance that we could have access to the Kiva that we need. And the third item is a station manager position. I'm convinced that, you know, the first question I get from the lawyers and consultants and others are, well, what are your salaries and who's running the station? And we've all been, the cable committee has been doing it on some pretty nominal stipends. And I think especially this year with the contract and all the work that's required of the contract and running lawyers and consultants and dealing with Comcast, which can be a bear in and of itself, and figuring out where the station location is going to be, and all the other, and I think to really get a good contract too, we've got to show some more forward progress with the station. Right now, we just haven't had time, committee members that can only give a few hours a week to do that. So I'm offering my services as a station manager for part-time up to 20 hours a week, and we can do this on a contract basis or a timesheet, however we want to work it. And the cable committee has approved that, and you see on the second and third sheets all the duties that I've listed. So I think the biggest thing this year is, the biggest things are getting the contract handled and, dealing with these capital plans, and the station location is a huge part of that. Supervising the installation of this room, the only reason it hasn't been done yet, we have a quote on it, but the consultant's bringing in another company, and they're gonna give us quotes on things, so I thought we could at least get a second quote. There are not a lot of companies that do this kind of work, so we can at least get a competing quote for this room as well, and go forward with that. And really to kickstart the station and get it going. So, I don't know if you want to take action.
Well, I would like to take the proposal for the station manager position under advisement. Our
Yeah.
next meeting is on Monday, so that we have time to review and look over and,
Sure.
okay. As for the consulting services, do you want us to vote on that? Or is this just?
If you wish, we've got a tentative date for him coming May 8th. To at least start the process, and I want to let you know, and, since we're an advisory board, you make the decisions.
Okay. So I would make a motion to hire the consultant for the cable, for consulting services for the cable station.
Do I have a second?
That.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Julie, could your motion include the funding source? So it's clear?
Oh, yeah, the funding comes from,
Yes, all this funding comes from the cable
Cancel
committee's
this one?
account, which is separate from the town budget. It's not raised and appropriated with taxes. It comes from
I didn't
Comcast,
register.
and
I've been here
it's
for
paid by the
I've been here for
franchise
4
fee
weeks
on
here.
the cable bills for the contract. So we're self-funded from that.
yeah. So if you have a Comcast bill, look at your franchise fee. That's money coming to the town.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I have a first and a second.
I'll second.
Okay. Was there any further discussion? If not, Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I will vote yes.
Thank
And I
you.
have just a comment I'd like to pass
Sure.
along. I've had numerous town residents say that when they watch the meetings, they can hear everybody up here fine, but they cannot hear anybody in the audience when they talk. So just as you're making your
Yes.
design for in here, we need to take that into
And
consideration.
one thing we didn't put in, because we thought this would be very temporary, were the ceiling mics
Yeah.
that we had in
Oh.
the previous. So, yes, and if people can speak up a little bit. I know we have one mic, but that's a good point.
Yeah.
And that's primarily my fault for not asking people to direct their voices there. Yes, ma'am.
Since this is gonna be a 20-hour position, is this benefited?
This would all be off budget. This would be off budget covered by the funds that are contributed by the subscribers.
Right, it would be a separate contract, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Is it
Wait.
paid through the town, though? Because wouldn't it still have to be benefited?
Isn't this out of a revolving fund?
Oh, well, usually they take the funds, they're given to the board. Didn't you say that you're a 501c3 nonprofit? Well, you need to do that. That's one of the things that they need to do, so that there is a genuine separation from the town. It's for several reasons. One of them is, this, Bill Solomon can go over this with you, but if in fact members of that board in the majority are connected somehow by appointment by town officials, like the Board of Selectmen, then all the government rules ride along. And that can affect programming. And some communities have had some difficulty there. So the advice is to set up a 501c3 nonprofit corporation,
to allocate the funds to that corporation, let them manage the funds, hire the station manager, and manage the system, with some members appointed by the selectmen, but not the majority. I know that there have been some programming that has caused some problems in some communities because, you know, the First Amendment rides along, and some stuff, fairly obnoxious stuff, gets on the cable system in some communities because it's considered a governmental entity.
Yeah.
So we want to avoid that.
Yeah. So, what the town administrator is referencing is that the Constitution, didn't expect to get a Constitution lesson tonight, but the Constitution says that the government cannot make laws to abridge the freedom of speech. So if the Cable Commission is seen as the government, that means that we can't say you can't put like racist, homophobic, anti-Semitic stuff on television. If it's a separate nonprofit, it's not the government, so they can say, oh no, we're not having KKK meetings or something on the, and that sounds ridiculous, but this is what's come up in other towns.
Yeah.
We're not gonna have that on our TV, but if it's the town that runs it, the town cannot say, we're not gonna have the KKK on because the government cannot make laws to abridge people's freedom of speech. So that's the difference that, yeah.
And in the interim, we could do just a flat fee versus a number of hours and a rate.
And that particular issue is the actual contract for the station manager is what we'll be deciding on Monday, correct? That, so we'll have time to kind of, the town administrator will have time to.
Well,
Just
Holly
'cause we can't discuss
has
it.
pointed out that we have canceled Monday.
We were doing this instead of Monday.
Oh, okay.
I thought we were doing Monday. I still had it on my schedule.
It's on the calendar,
I
but
thought
she
we were
just
doing
said to
this
me
instead
that
of
she
last
thought that when we scheduled tonight,
Monday, thought it was
we were
Monday.
canceling Monday, so I guess that can be decided
Yeah.
later.
Okay.
So we have not the advisor, we have the consultant appointed, and at our next meeting, we will take care of the station manager position, and the station location is still in.
Very much up in.
And up to the new building inspector can give us feedback as
It'll be up
well.
in the air for a while, I'm sure.
Great. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Castle? No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you for your work.
Do the job, Steve.
Yeah.
It'll do a better job.
The next item that we have is action on Vault Edition bid contract. I don't know if that was already covered in the, or if you need.
Well, we thought we were coming in tonight with a contract to sign, but we've had this wrinkle with the low bidder.
Right.
And we thought that we'd like to get this going. And I'm wondering if the board could vote to authorize me to sign the contract with the lowest qualified bidder. So,
Do I have a motion to approve the town administrator to move forward with the lowest qualified bid for the town clerk vault to be constructed? Do I have a second?
Excuse me.
Yeah. Oh, well, just, 1 second. So do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a first and a second. So we'll, John first, Diane, or Julie seconded.
Yeah.
And now we'll move on to discussion. Yes, sir.
You had a bid once previous, was only what, $20,000, but someone did some work around here?
No,
Huh?
it was
Chad,
78,000.
you put a bid in for something,
It was 78,000.
78.
78?
Yeah.
Now it's up to 100, how much?
Well, that's the bid just to do the shell, and then the jacket, I mean, the actual vault, the steel vault, is a separate expense, and that's a standard like 60,000, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you put the cost, we're bidding out the cost of the shell itself. We're going to buy the actual vault separately and have it installed, but the total then adds up, well, if we have 55, which is what we have, for that, and then you add the cost of
Expenses.
the expenses and so forth, it gets us above 120, so that's kind of where we are, and
It's too much of a process to take the door off the other one?
It doesn't, it's not up to current codes.
no.
It's
The other
not
thing
up
is,
to
we,
current
you know,
code.
the other thing is the state, through the Secretary of State, enforces regulations anytime there's a new vault. If you have an old clerk's vault, they won't hassle you, but if you do a new one, you have to meet certain standards. So, it's,
Bunch of old moldy stuff,
yeah.
for the most part.
Well, we did discuss this with the clerk, and the size that was originally projected has been reduced. And I'm one who thinks that you're probably going to see, for example, she has a system now that will scan and create electronic files. So going forward, that's where it's going to go. You're going to have birth certificates, all that stuff is going to be electronic, so that when somebody comes in and asks for one of those, she can print it out directly on her desk and doesn't have to get up and walk into the vault and bring up moldy files. So,
Thank you. So I had a first and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I will vote yes. The next item that we have is action on creation of a burial ground committee.
Yeah, Alan came in this week and I was talking to him about that. I guess he has some regulations that they have to have a commission to do some of the grants or something that go with this. I don't really understand, but he wanted to ask you guys to create a commission.
So we would be voting to create the commission, and then it would be filled through recommendation through us or through?
Through us.
Through us, okay. So we would just be voting to create it, not
To
actually?
create it.
Fill it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Is
he
it a
suggested.
commission or a
I think
committee?
he suggested 3.
Three. Is it a, sorry, Doug asked, is it a committee or a commission? Committee?
A committee.
Different things.
Committee, yeah.
A
It's a committee, okay. And 3 members is what Mr. Mayo requested?
He said he thought 3 would be good,
Yeah.
but he would leave it up to you.
Do I have a motion to create a burial ground committee?
So moved.
Is there a second?
the one that wants to do the hot dog stand is here.
Second.
Second, okay. Is there any discussion? Yes, sir.
I'm gonna vote yes for this, but before we actually implement it and appoint people to it, there needs to be a whole lot more specifics.
Oh, right, right. And we'll also want anyone that is being recommended to us or to apply, obviously, we'll need to make that public either through, whether it's the cemetery department that does that or us, but ultimately we'll need, obviously, the recommendations, and we'll want to make that public so that it's as transparent and open as possible.
Right.
Any other discussion?
Who seconded that?
Oh, who seconded it?
I did.
I don't-
Thanks.
Okay. And this is for a 3-member committee, correct? The first and the seconders? Okay. Okay, Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I will vote yes. So next, we have action on common victular license for All Steamed Up. It is, it would be through December 31st, 2015, unless sooner suspended or revoked.
I'll make a
Petitioner's here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, she's
Yes,
right here.
ma'am. Is there anything that you would like to?
What?
Kapusta.
The best hot dogs around, I've heard.
Yeah. So we have an endorsement from the front row, so we'll.
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
I have a first and a second. Is there any further discussion? Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Can I
Yes.
speak?
Oh, yep.
Just a little more specifics about where it's located and what are you doing there? Or hours? Anything you can tell us about your business?
It's my 4th season, it's on 377 State Road in Orland River,
Okay.
in front of DK Welding, that's my name.
Let's grab my pen. Okay, John?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I will vote yes as well. So thank you very much.
We'll be over to check out the caboose.
Yeah. As you can tell, I'm a very light eater, so, but I'll manage, I'm sure, to make my way.
Would
Yeah,
you
you
guys mind signing that for her so she
Yep,
can get
sure.
it tonight?
And we'll sign this now, so you have it. The next item that we have on the agenda is action on auto amusement license for Peaceful Pines. We had a request from John and Sherry Buckley to approve, just looking, sorry, the automatic amusement devices of one pool table, 2 electronic games, and 1 pinball game. And they are kept at Peaceful Pines in the Recreation Hall, 1 game room, 1 room for store, and 2 entrances and exits are the description of the premises. Oh, do you want to recuse? Yep.
I'd like to recuse myself.
So if we can have the record show that Diane is recusing herself from this discussion and vote.
With the way of buggy whips.
Okay.
They're electronic, right? They're electronic.
Do I have, and then we'll discuss, do I have a motion to approve the automatic amusement device license for 1 pool table, 2 electronic games, and 1 pool ball game for Peaceful Pines Campground located at 2 Peaceful Pines Street, Templeton, Mass?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second,
Okay, first and a second. Is there any discussion? Yes, sir.
the duration of the license?
Oh, I'm sorry. It expires October 31st, 2015.
Okay, so it's from, if we approve it tonight, it goes from tonight till
October
October?
October 31st. Just out of curiosity, is that the Halloween, the October 31st, why is it that that ends?
I think it's just because that's when they close down. before
Oh,
that
gotcha,
point.
that's what the request was, okay. Perfect. Okay, so I have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Yes.
I read somewhere, the police chief is supposed to inspect,
He goes after they open up, and I talked to
Okay.
him today. He said that's
Okay.
standard procedure, and that's, he'll be over there. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, anything else? If not, Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
And I will vote yes. So thank you to Peaceful Pines. Does someone want to grab Diane? Or if you could, please.
Be this for her so she can leave.
She apparently really recused herself. She left the building.
Now, this needs coordination is for Hubbardston.
And the next item, I believe, I know that Mrs. Young is taking care of that license, so we'll skip the next item and come back to it if that's okay, the lien subordination request from the
Okay.
CDBG, just so that we can get the details and ask her about that. So the next item we have is action on the election warrant. If we skip through the... Is it, oh, it's actually before. We haven't.
Am I voting this at the moment? Is that what she's going to get?
No, I think, oh, here it is, it's here. Yeah,
The election one.
so, this is the warrant for the annual town election to be held on May 4th, 2015. It will be held at 11 a.m. It will be 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. It's not a statewide election, so we don't get the funding, so it's only, the polls are only open for the 8-hour period. So polls, if voted, will open May 4th at 7 o'clock in the morning.
No.
Oh, 11 o'clock in the morning, I'm sorry, to end at 7 p.m. The positions that are listed are one member of the Board of Selectmen for 3 years, 1 member Board of Assessors for 3 years, 1 member Board of Health for 3 years, 1 member Cemetery and Parks Commission, 3 years, 1 member Cemetery and Parks Commission, 2 years unexpired, 1 town clerk for 3 years, 1 member Community Preservation Committee for 3 years, 2 constables for 3 years, 1 member of the Light and Water Commission for 3 years, 1 moderator for 1 year, 1 member of Housing Authority for 5 years, 2 members Planning Board for 5 years, 1 member Sewer Commission for 3 years, 2 members of Narragansett Regional School District Committee, Templeton, 3 years, and 1 member Narragansett Regional School District Committee, Phillipston, for 3 years. And the ballot will also contain a question: shall the town of Templeton be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2 1/2, so-called, the amount of $300,000 required to pay for the purchase of an excavator for the highway department? This was part of the capital plan that we had voted on a few meetings ago. Polls will open at 11 a.m., close at 7 p.m., and it is dated today, April 23rd. Do I have a motion to approve the warrant for the annual town election for May 4th as presented?
Mr. Chairman, I would request authority to put the number in when the CPC conducts their meeting for any changes in that number for the vault.
Well, this is
No,
just.
it's
the-
for the election
This is
warrant.
I'm sorry,
Oh, just the election, yeah.
It's
I'm
late.
ahead of it here.
Yeah, he wanted to make sure to get that in.
So
So, yeah. So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have first and a second, yes.
I just have a question. You said 300,000, I thought that was a 5-year debt exclusion, 5 years. No?
It
I
is.
mean, that's what the capital planning,
It is.
I didn't hear the 5 years.
It is.
Oh, the 5 years is not listed in the, or is not
Well,
stated in the.
actually listed as Prop 2.5, which is not a debt exclusion.
No, it actually is. Even though we generally don't call them that, the Prop 2.5 includes the debt exclusion.
Yeah, it does.
But the
There's no
time
debt
period, we
time.
don't,
It's in the
article,
It's
but
in
it
the
doesn't
article.
come on the
In the
ballot.
it's in the article
Because
and in the motion as well.
right.
because from my understanding, it's, the time period is truly at the discretion
Of the towns.
of the select board. I mean,
Oh.
the committee could have recommended a 5 years, but the select board could say, no, we're only gonna do it for 2 years.
Yeah.
So that's why the time period isn't on this piece. It's my understanding.
Yeah. And I recall that from the
I just hope
previous.
that people don't get confused with that, because it's not all in.
Yeah, they are, because I just got confused, because I didn't read it correctly. So you're gonna have, they're gonna think it's Prop 2.5,
But-
like raising it in your taxes, not a
Like a
debt
permanent
exclusion.
increase, yeah.
Right.
It's gonna be, you're not gonna.
Yeah, but I do know that the regarding the time, I do recall that, as Doug said about that being up to the bond issue that the Board of Selectmen does. But I do know that also the Proposition 2.5, that came
Right.
up at our last debt
Yeah.
exclusion, which I forget what it was for.
It is a Prop 2.5
Right.
vote. Also, on the warrant and in the explanation, I've explained, I'm projecting 5 years, roughly $65,000 a year, and 12 cents on the tax rate.
And do we have to wait until we have a bond rating to, or
No.
no, it's just?
Well, actually, we're not going to be able to bond. I talked with, Kelly and I talked about that. We would short-term it.
Gotcha,
you know.
okay.
That's all we can do.
That's all we can. That makes it an easy decision. I have a first, oh, sorry.
Just one comment, this is one of the reasons I think it's extremely confusing for the people that we do the election before the town meeting. I understand there's advantages to doing it this way so that you don't have to have a second town meeting, but again, if you had town meeting first, people would be able to see that it's a 5-year. You'd be able to explain that it's only 65,000 a year, not 300. So just, it's bugged me since the day we moved to town, the very first town meeting I went to.
I
is,
was flirted.
why are we voting on this and we don't even know what it's about?
Right.
Is there something that selectmen can do that they can end up, just like the administrator said, $65,000, and it's going to be only 12.
We should be putting that
12 cents.
information out there, and it
Right,
should
that
be in the
information.
newspaper, and
But I
we're
guess-
gonna have to make sure that it's explained.
Right.
Otherwise, it's gonna be not.
But I guess the question is, so we may vote to have a 5-year now, but as the composition of the board changes over the 5 years, that could change as well. Correct?
No.
No, it should be,
Why should it?
right, once we say that it's a
Once we do it.
5-year and we go out and
Right, but we
do
haven't.
that borrowing.
Right, but we
Right, you
haven't,
can't, you can't.
we haven't, and we're gonna be short-terming
I
it,
think
so we're
it's
not
just
gonna be
explaining
doing a
that it's a
5-year
debt
borrow.
exclusion
Yeah.
and not a.
Yeah.
But we do
It's
have
just-
to-
It really
right.
does need to be
Yeah,
explained.
but we do have to have the language, Proposition 2.5 in there, even though it's a debt exclusion. I don't know, and we've done it, but we've had votes before that were not official votes, but just for advisory purposes. We should see about having, perhaps the town clerk, the same way that the Secretary of State issues explanations of
Right.
ballot questions
Questions, yeah.
for the state. If they can do it, then it would seem that maybe the town clerk could explain that as well, that it is an actual debt exclusion. So I have a first, second discussion. Anything else?
I'm going to abstain on this because my name appears on the ballot.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Gotcha. So if we could have the minutes show that Selectwoman Farrell abstained. Doug?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I will vote yes. So the election is set. If we could, the next item that we have, if we could go back to the lien subordination request from CDBG. Holly, are you the holder of information regarding that lien request?
Yeah.
Yeah, I assume so.
Do you have questions?
Yes.
Oh, boy.
So I just out of curiosity, it's, the property is located in Hubbardston?
Okay,
Yes.
I
Yep.
have the same question.
Yeah, okay. But as it was explained to me by Selectwoman Haley Brooks, unless it was right, and then I thought of it on my own, it's because we have a joint grant with Hubbardston.
Yes.
So we have to approve the subordination of the lien.
Yeah. We have the
Because,
lead
That's the one question I
Because
asked
we're the
Mike,
lead community,
because I saw
okay.
Hubbardston too.
Right.
Yeah, it's because it's a joint.
yeah, so, and this is a lien and for once, it's not one of my clients, so that's nice. I can actually vote on it. It's a subordination agreement for Pacific Union Financial LLC. It's to subordinate our lien, so we would still have the lien on the property. It's just that the refinancing lien would have a first lien holder, would basically be the first mortgage, and we would be the second on the property, which is located at 96 Old Princeton Road in Hubbardston. Do I have a motion regarding this subordination agreement requested by CDBG?
I will make a motion to have the chairman sign the subordination agreement.
Do I have a second?
I will second that.
Yes, sir.
Do we know how Hubbardston's voted on this already?
I don't know that they
I
have
don't know,
to.
they have to.
They don't.
We're the lead.
Yeah.
We got the community
Through
development.
our
LEA.
grant, through our grant,
Yeah.
that they took, oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. I didn't know if they had to take it in that
Yeah.
also do it.
Only one.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other discussion?
Why is it a good reason for us to give up our first position, our first right?
Can I?
Oh, yeah.
We don't currently have the first position, Doug. The original mortgager does. But if they refinanced, then we would move up to first and the primary mortgager would be second. So what we're doing was just replacing one with the other.
Okay.
Right, but we are subordinating our right, because if we said no to do this, they wouldn't be able to refinance is what practically would happen. But assuming that they were still able to refinance, we would have the first and then the new, Union Pacific would have the second. But obviously Union Pacific will not give the refinance if we don't subordinate.
Yeah,
So,
okay. All right, I understand that.
Any other discussion? If not, Jolie? Oh, yes, sir.
We collected all that money, speaking of tax title land supposed to be coming to us, talking about.
Oh, you mean from the tax title
Yeah, we
auctions?
collected all that money.
We have, but we can't spend it, because it's free cash, so until the audits are done, we can't spend it, but,
We have 414,000.
yeah. And that may be the best place for it to be. We have it, but we can't spend it, so. Yeah. At least for now.
Amen.
Any other discussion? Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I will vote yes. Next item we have is action on the annual town meeting warrant, which we have already discussed. And just for the audience and public at home, we, including citizens petitions, have 27 articles, so down to 27. If I could request a motion, and that motion to include language that authorizes the town administrator to make changes to the motions as recommended by town council, and also to input the figures through motion for the CPC.
So moved.
So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
First and a second. Is there any discussion? If not, Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I will vote yes.
All right, and this will be posted when?
I
Tonight.
have to, I know. I'm going to press hard on town council to make any recommendations that they have on the motions, and we'll have it posted by Monday.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that'll provide nearly 3 weeks for people to
Great.
look at it, and we'll put it on our website and any other website or any other, anybody that wants to post it on a personal website or blogs and so
Facebook,
forth, it can be posted. It's a public document.
Do we need to vote the new budget since it's been changed?
Sure.
Yeah.
Do we have a motion to approve the new budget, which I guess has the impact of a motion at town meeting, but to approve it for the select boards?
You mean approve it tonight? Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Yeah, with the
Yeah.
changes that.
I just,
With
the
the
only, are we at a, if we vote this tonight, is there still other changes that could be
No.
made, or?
No, the only change to be made is that I'll move the $1,000 out of pest control and create a line item for beavers.
Yeah.
No, you need to add
Yeah,
back
the
to the scholarship.
And the
I'm gonna keep
scholarship.
saying that
And the
because,
scholarship, yes.
and then everything else looked fine, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we would have to do that subject to, and you're certain that the money is in there for the building inspector? I just really, that was $12,435. So I would hate to see that not be there, and then, so as long as those changes are
Well,
made and are there.
Yeah, I mean,
would
I
say-
can, you can
There's always something that Kelly can
Right,
find,
right.
right?
And the actual budget is not
It gets
an
voted on.
article, right. It's actually, it has the effect of being a motion, so if something did come up, we could always, as long as the board at an open meeting voted to change it, we could change the budget the day before the town meeting if we had to at a posted meeting, because it's not actually printed in the, it's not an actual article, it's a motion.
right. And it'll be attached, we're going to be printing copies of the warrant for distribution at the meeting. So
Hopefully
anyone who
two-sided.
doesn't get an electronic copy online will attach this to the back. And if you look at the article, it says it's a motion to adopt the budget as per, and it refers to the document attached. So that's how we'll handle that.
Article 5.
Yes, Article 5.
Article 5.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Just as a reminder, Article 4, Section 4 of bylaws,
Oh.
basically along with the municipal calendar and the financial handbook for the advisory board, basically says that the budget that comes before town meeting is the one that the advisory board has. Yours will be posted there also, so people can see the difference. But the budget that's going to be presented will be the advisory board one.
Really?
We have,
I don't, that's what it says? I thought it was the selectmen's budget that was presented, and then you have your
changed that
budget
by
also.
election.
Am I-
Right.
Yeah, because
It's the selectmen's
Right.
budget that's, am I wrong?
I guess because my question would be,
No.
what is the purpose of the advisory board then to put forth their own budget and then
Yeah.
advise on whether or not to approve it?
That makes no
It's-
sense
it's-
to me.
It's not necessarily a whole budget that's changed. It's looking at your budget and making suggestions as to maybe some areas that make more sense, they could end up doing something else.
Right.
That's of our
I could end up
bylaws?
showing you all the documentation, you can end up looking on, if you look on on the town website, under the advisory board, your calendar's there, your financial responsibilities for all the committees, as well as the financial handbook for finance committees, also spells all of this out, that it is yours, you're basically, it's like government. You're the executive branch. The advisory board is your House and Means. It's your legislation plans, which end up saying, okay, this can be
No, the
done.
town meeting assembled is the legislative
Exactly.
branch of government.
Well,
the-
it's
right.
presented from the advisory board.
To me, it doesn't even pass a sniff test, because
No.
to say that a board that is not elected is who decides what the town budget to be presented
Well, that would be.
is,
what's the-
so I guess, so I'm sure that the advisory board has the full capacity to say we recommend a no vote on the select board's budget. Here's the budget that we would substitute, which the advisory board has every right to do. But to actually say that we're gonna hand out the advisory board budget as the town budget, and then the advisory board's gonna recommend a yes vote on it. So you have an unelected board making the budget and recommending a yes vote. That to me doesn't, I mean, that doesn't even seem, like I said, it doesn't pass the sniff test
Well, that would be
necessarily.
different than any other community that has. Every other community, basically, their finance or advisory board is the one that brings it before the town meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I think we have a solution here. First of all, I respectfully disagree. I read the new bylaw for the new budget process pretty clearly to say that the budget of the town is the budget of the selectmen.
Absolutely.
I have a column, you don't see it on the budget there just because of the printing and because it's blank.
I'm gonna read that.
But as soon as we get recommendations on particular line items from the advisory board, that will go in that last column and will be presented at the town meeting. So if you're a town meeting participant, you're going to see the budget of the selectmen, you're going to see the recommendations for any changes
Just like any other warrant
by
article.
by the advisory board. So even though I think we can talk about whose budget it is, as a matter of fact,
It would be
those who
labeled.
attend will see your budget and they'll
Both,
see what
right?
Section
the-
4 says, "It shall be the duty of the advisory committee annually to consider the expenditures in the previous years and the estimated requirements for the ensuing year of the several boards, officers, and committees of the town, as prepared by them in such form and detail as may be prescribed by said committee. Thus said committee shall add to such statement of expenditures and estimates another column, giving the amounts which in its opinion should be appropriated, and shall further add thereto such explanations and suggestions relating to the proposed appropriations as it may deem expedient, and report thereon as provided in section 5.
Right, so you
But
would be adding.
I read the
right,
bylaw that was adopted last spring,
Yeah, right.
superseding that.
Right,
I
we have
think
a new
so.
bylaw.
This is wrong.
Yeah.
So,
But I mean, as a practical matter,
they're the elected
those who
board.
attend are going to see what you believe the budget to be, and then.
Because they advise on our budget, so we put forth the budget, and they are free to vote and say, no, every single item is wrong, and let me tell you why. That's what the advisory board does. To do the contrary would mean the advisory board puts together a budget and then advises the town to adopt the budget that they created, which, there is no check and balance then. The purpose of the advisory board is to look over what the select board does. So the select board has to do it, so the advisory board can then say, oh no, we think the town administrator position should be zeroed out, and we should go back to it, you know, we shouldn't fund this or we shouldn't fund that. In order for them to advise and give recommendations, they have to be advising and giving recommendations on something, and it can't be their own budget. Because it would be really schizophrenic for them to present their own budget and then provide recommendations that are contrary to the budget that they put forth themselves. In order to advise somebody, you have to be advising them on something. Right, Bev, you were correct, and I left that caramel in my car, I should have gotten it. Brought it in with me, but anyway, so yes, that's my answer to that. So unless there's a sentiment by the majority of the board contrary, that's okay.
Makes perfect sense. I mean,
Yes.
it's-
Oh, yes, Miss Fulton.
Yes, well, what I've been saying for months, literally, on the operating budget, you should have, as Bob Harper has said, there should be a line that should show, you know, the selectmen, the advisory board, if it's a different recommendation, but what they recommend. But I also want to see the amount requested by the department.
Oh.
It may be different, it may not be different, it may be fine, it may be just, you know, they're probably all good now, they know to keep it within 2.5%. But if there is, in case there is a change, so that on the floor of the town meeting, the departments themselves can argue for their budget. It may not work out that it's not practical, but
Right.
at least we know what their realistic needs are, why they want something, what they want, and why they want it. And on the other articles, the non-operating budget, it should be 4 things. 1, who submitted the budget, who submitted the article, whether the selectmen recommend it or not, whether the advisory board recommends it or not, and what the vote is, whether it's a majority vote, whether it's a
Two-thirds.
two-thirds vote, or it could
That's too
be,
much.
there's a couple of
Right.
votes.
Other things.
That last part, I think, is important
Very
too, particularly as we don't have a town moderator running. So if someone, it's, it's a write-in candidate, let's say, that gets 2 votes and they're a new town moderator, it would be good to have ahead of time, what the required vote is, whether it is a 2/3 or a simple majority.
Articles, that 4 pieces of information there, and on the operating budget, we should know what was the original request of the department, because if it's different from what the selectmen or the advisory board are recommending, it may not, they may all be in perfect agreement, and that makes life easy. But if it isn't, then I think the 3 should each have their own chance to present or argue
Right.
their own case.
Right. And something else to point out too, the school, and just in comparison, we don't obviously oftentimes it is that we up or down vote the budget, but in legal and practical sense, it's not like the town's allocation where we either voted up or we voted down and we can't really make changes. With the town budget, anyone can get up and say, I think that this line item, that beaver control should be cut to 500, and if that's the motion that's made and the motion passes, it doesn't matter, obviously, what the selectmen want or what the advisory board wants, it's the town meeting that decides on that. So, right, so it,
Then from the floor.
right, so it would be good to have that information, so someone who's considering amending can see that, oh, actually, the health, or I won't pick on that, the building inspector, just because I see Mrs. Morrison, the building inspector, who no longer works there, but used to, the building inspector requested 150,000 and we gave him 40 grand. It makes it, it provides information to people from the floor who may want to modify the line items, and then those people who have to vote on those modifications.
And I have one more question.
Yes.
On the articles, other than the operating budget, how much will those articles, in other words, how much will the town have to raise? I know you mentioned 64,000, another 30,000, there was 50,000. I don't know, you're not talking from this year for that 50,000, because we've already spent 15. But the thing is that how much do we need to fund the other articles other than the operating budget?
By the way, that is also in the operating, in this document.
But everything is.
Everything's in there.
But I mean,
There is an article for $30,000 for the triennial revaluation for the assessors.
Right.
That's the one money article that stays on the warrant, because that money doesn't wash out the free cash at the end of the year. It gets into a special account.
Right.
And town council said that in order to be able to keep that money active for a series of years, you should have it as a warrant article. I have it as a warrant article, but I also have it calculated on the budget. So it's, the bottom line number on the budget includes that number.
Well, I'm also thinking of one-time expenditures, for example, the excavator. Now, you said that's as a debt exclusion.
Yes.
Okay, so that still has to be a debt exclusion, it still has to be, come out of raise and appropriate. Are there any other articles on the warrant that are funded through raise and appropriate?
No.
Everything else, because I know there's a lot of transfers.
No.
Because I have read through it, and I will admit, I can't think, but I'm thinking for in the past, in the future, police department wants a new cruiser, the fire chief wants a new ladder truck, you know.
Two of them.
Those kinds of.
All those.
Yeah.
No,
Yep.
but, these large-scale expenses that we do tend to vote as debt exclusions, but sometimes there are things that we do a raise and appropriate.
Right,
It might
get
be
within the
a
levy
single
limit.
cruiser, although it could be dragged out over several years. But I'm just wondering, is there any value on any of the other articles? I didn't remember.
No,
seeing
no,
it,
and
but I thought
what we've all agreed to here going forward is there is a separate capital plan that would take care of the purchase of capital items. And we would use free cash for that when it becomes available. Or if it's a big ticket item, we would use borrowing for that. So
do we have an account set up where we can put capital money? I know several towns have, they put 25,000 or
Yes.
50,000 every year
No.
into their capital account.
Right.
And when they come up and they need that new
Short answer, yes.
backhoe, or
We
they
have an
need
account.
that new cruiser, they at least have the first, maybe the second year's payment on it. Do we have anything like that?
That's a very good idea. That requires, and I know what you're talking about, the establishment of a new stabilization fund called a, capital stabilization fund.
Which we have.
And some communities even earmark, you can even earmark an override into that account so that every year you get a certain amount of your tax dollars going into that account. I think it's a very good idea. We haven't gotten to that yet.
We have an account, it's just not
You
funded.
have, I know you have two other stabilization
Yeah.
accounts.
That's what I was
We have
gonna
a
say.
capital
We have an account,
stabilization.
but
Oh, you do?
why is
Oh, that's right, it says capital, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So it's a general capital stabilization account, yeah.
10,000 a year.
To start the process, right.
Just to build it up.
Yes, Ms. Moore.
I just want the public and Ms. Fulton to know that we met as department heads and discussed the budget and agreed as department heads that we are not going to play the cutthroat game on the town floor. It's a united front.
Yeah, I said to them that I don't want any end running on the budget of the selectmen on the town floor. I said, why create a budget if we're gonna have a free-for-all with department heads? So I disagree with her. I'm not gonna fight tonight,
Can we,
The department heads are pretty
Yes,
clear that they're not gonna be doing that.
John,
Well, I would argue
And everybody else.
that if you look at the bylaw regarding the town administrator, that the department head's budget is what the town administrator says the department head budget is.
Yeah.
So it's,
No, the department head's budget is what the department head requests. Now, it can be adjusted.
no. Have you read the bylaw, Kate? Have you read the bylaw?
right,
You don't put in a request, because every other town I've ever worked with, and I've been to ATMs and budget discussion meetings in every, more than a dozen towns in this area. And the department head puts in his or her budget request,
right.
and then the selectmen and the advisory board discuss it, and they may make changes.
Right, and so it goes through the town administrator, but obviously as with anything that the town administrator does, it is subject to the purview and the vote of the select board should they decide otherwise. So I can see a situation arising where a particular department head wants to advocate that they need $20,000 more, which the town administrator doesn't, believe. But obviously, if that town.
Not even have them.
Right. But if that department head lives in town, obviously, or if they're allowed to get up and suggest, that there be a line item change, or if someone who's on that committee, the health department or the sewer, not sewer, we don't vote on sewer, cemetery commission, if one of those residents gets up, they can obviously override. Anything that we do can be overridden by the town meeting. So really, the question of the select board's budget, or the town administrator's budget, or the advisory board's budget, ultimately, the town meeting is who decides. So, if they get up and they say, we don't think 20 grand is enough for the building inspector, we want 200,000, if we can get a balanced budget and do that, then somebody can do that. So, yes, sir.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You can take a number value and make it smaller, but you can't take a number value and make it bigger on town meeting floor.
You can, as long as you have a corresponding cut too. So if we said we're gonna take 20
You have a
grand from
funding
the
source.
fire department and give it to the police, as long as you can,
But doesn't that require advertising in the warrant
No.
pre the town meeting?
no, the whole budget, when we go into the town, the budget itself is a motion, not the actual article. So people know we're voting on the town budget. So if you care, not you, but if a resident cares about the town budget, they have the appropriate legal warning to know that anything's on the table. And in the past, I think there have been years where motions, well, I know there's been years where motions weren't even voted on by the board. It was just kind of, town council said, this is what you read, so this is what we did. And I know that we're moving towards getting those published ahead of time, and actually the select board voting on those ahead of time, or appointing the town administrator to do that. But right, so anything on the town budget is completely, as long as there's we have a balanced budget at the end of the meeting, because we're not allowed to adjourn if we don't have a balanced budget, but as long as we have a balanced budget by the end of the meeting, anything can be done, really, on town. So they could like zero out a budget line item and give it to someone else, yes?
Just to echo Diana's comment, I think that the process has been handled very professionally this year, and having done this in more than one town, I appreciate the effort that's gone into it. It's been wonderful to work through.
Can I
Great,
just say too, that, Kate, part of the thing were the ad backs that people asked for, or we had talked about, not really talked about, but just, we came to the town administrator and we said, well, what about this? And I know Bob and I had several conversations, I don't know about other people, but I advocated on but you did not ask for another person, I did for you. So it's not that we're not looking at it, it's not that we don't want another department, but based in our conversations with you. So they were told what to have for a budget, and we said, can we add these things back? And again, it works, I think it worked really well. Really well.
Yeah, I would be
I'm
frankly
not criticizing.
concerned.
I beg your pardon. I'm not criticizing the process. I'm not saying, it seems to be working far better than I have seen it ever work in this town. However, I'm just saying that any time, and I mean, I've been to lots, usually the department head knows what the departments need and submit
Right.
a budget request.
Right, which it would always be, I think too, as well, if a department had felt that which this has happened, just since I've been here. If a department head feels that what was allocated in the budget is